This is Kevin with MixCoach.com. Today on a Skype call, I've got a buddy, Ryan Ruff. He owns a studio called Ruff Mix Studios. Check him out. But anyway, he had a couple questions the other day that we talked about, and I wanted to record it because I thought some of the information that we talked about would be helpful to a lot more people. So, Ryan, thank you for agreeing to be videotaped this early in the morning. And go ahead and mention the question that you had, and we'll just try to recap what we talked about on the conversation.
Sure. Well, we had just talked about, from my standpoint, I've been working really hard at becoming a good mix engineer. And a lot of times you will find that you get bands that'll come in and they have quite a bit of talent, but they might not have quite as much money as they would like, and they'll pay for a good mix, and I'll end up doing a good mix for them. But then they don't feel for some reason or another that they want to pour much money into the mastering aspect of things. And so what ends up happening is they send it out to get mastered by someone who really shouldn't be mastering, at least at the quality we're trying to go for. And it ends up altering the mix. It makes the mix sound bad. It brings up a lot of the low-level stuff, a lot of the reverbs, and it does some funky stuff to the snare, delays, and so on. And so it just kind of makes your mix sound poorly, but yet your name is still on it. And so I was just asking about how that can be avoided.
Mm-hmm. So the first thing I would recommend is discuss mastering from the very beginning, because a lot of people just make mastering kind of like an afterthought almost. And like, oh yeah, we got to get this mastered. Let's send it to my cousin. I find that really good mastering engineers are a different breed than we are, so they think differently than we are. And when you hand it off to somebody who wishes they could have mixed it, then it's usually not a good combination. So any of this stuff you need to discuss from the beginning of it. A few years ago, I was in the same dilemma that you were. I didn't have a mastering engineer that I could call my own. And there was a guy that I was using in New York City. His name is Silverman at ARF Mastering, which I would highly recommend. He's one of those guys. He's got one Weiss or Vice. He calls it a Vice. I think he probably knows better than it's WEISS EQ
Mm-hmm.
and compressor.
Mm-hmm.
Each one of those units are over $10,000 a piece.
Oh, yeah.
I've been in mastering houses like Masterphonics. I used to use Glenn Meadows a lot. I don't know if you read his name or not, but
A little bit.
he was a really, really good mastering engineer. And I asked, you walk into a room and there's one little desk and there's two big speakers. No, there's no little speakers. And then I asked him about the amplifiers he was powering each speaker with. Each amplifier was $10,000. That's what I don't have. Anytime you hand your mix off to somebody who's listening on speakers that you listened on, then you really don't have an advantage. You may as well just make it louder yourself, because that's really probably what they're going to do is just make it louder and make it brighter and make it more. Add more lows to it. Well, that's what you can do. What you really want is somebody that says, "Yeah, there was a little buildup of 1.2K." And I tweaked it
Right.
at 0.3 dB, and it's like, okay, you were really listening to my mix. Or better yet, for somebody to call and say, "Hey Kevin, I noticed that the vocals on this one particular song are not as loud as the rest of them. Do you want me to EQ it, or do you want to send me another mix?" See, I think that's worth the price of paying a mastering engineer right there. Somebody that's going to get your back,
Sure.
And chances are that the more inexpensive mastering engineers are just going to try to get it out the door. If you're going to do this on a regular basis and you're going to be known for your mixing, which I think you do want to be known for your mixing, and I think your mixing is really good, I think that you need to create a relationship with a good mastering engineer so that you'll have that default answer to say, when somebody says, "Hey, who do you use for mastering?" You say, Silverman in New York. He's awesome.
You talk about the word relationship. How exactly, for someone like myself, I think a lot of times when you're just trying to establish yourself and trying to get yourself up and going, make a name for yourself, so to speak, building relationships is kind of difficult. A lot of times people will treat you like you're a nobody, which you are at that point. You're working your way up, um, but it's kind of hard to overcome that treatment of, you know, hey, I don't really know you, and you could be. I call it American Idol syndrome. You could think that you're a really good mix engineer, but you don't know what you really don't know how bad you are or whatever. They don't know you, so they might think that, or whatever, and they kind of blow you off. Or how do you go about building relationships, and not just with the guy down the street who masters, but some people who you can really trust and who are established in the industry as someone who's kind of a newcomer to the field?
Okay. That's a good question, what you have. And the first thing I can think about, building relationships usually doesn't happen within overnight for sure. And it usually doesn't even happen within weeks. You seem like a kind of guy who wouldn't have any trouble building relationships. What I did when I first moved to Nashville was that was one of the things that was on my agenda. I was going to try to work as much as I could. Um, and then I just decided up front, I'm not going to work every day. Get over that. There will come a day when you'll be busier than you are right now. But on the days that you're not working and making money, I was making it, I wasn't really talking out loud to myself, but I decided this. You were going to be out networking. And that's exactly what I did. Every time I could find a lunch where there was a bunch of musicians and maybe a producer and maybe an engineering friend of mine who didn't mind me hanging out and who didn't think I was going to steal his work or whatever. A busy guy who was like, hey, I need some help. There are those kind of guys around. I would go and hang out with them. And inevitably, the next few days, I would end up with some session work from that. But it took years to get to where they wouldn't trust me to come and hang out. It takes years to build a relationship like that. So you almost have to sacrifice yourself sometimes. Don't think about how much you're making an hour, how much you're making on this particular project, but make it come down to like, I want to make this right for this client because this is the kind of guy. Maybe you're not. Maybe he is. Maybe he's not. This is the kind of guy that I need on my team. And then there was a lot of times that I went above and beyond to make it sound exactly like he wanted to. And it came back and helped me in the end because, I'm doing a session for him in an hour.